Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today we're continuing our product review of the ICM acrylic paint range, focusing on the metallics today. So there's 11 metallics in the set of 80 paints, and we're going to try them all and see what they look like. So you can see we've taken our friend here and prepped it in black. Now this isn't a gloss black, it's a matte black, although it's not very matte really. But some people will argue that you should do it in a gloss black. I've found from doing my tests and experiments that it makes very, very little difference, certainly on the paints I've tried. So I do prefer to use a black, but I'm not that fussed whether it's glossy or not. And sometimes you don't want it glossy, you want it a bit dull anyway. So we have a number of paints to go through, and what I'm going to try and do is sort of do them together so that we've got the brasses and the golds together, the sort of steely colours together, and then we've got some odd ones that sort of sit in between. So we've got a bronze, a burnt tin, and they're sort of darker colours, so we might put the gunmetal with them, and then we've got oily steel, natural steel, silver and aluminium we can put grouped together. So we'll paint them next to each other so we can see the differences. I think that will be helpful. So what we're probably going to do is do these on the fuselage, these on one wing and these on another, and give them a strip each. Now we've already had a play with the varnishes and found that the gold reacted really nicely to the varnish, but let's just see. So far we've found that the paints respond better to a little bit of thinning even when you're brush painting, so I'm going to assume that's the case. So I'm going to get my palette and some water and we will get started. Right then, let's start with these dark ones. So the first one that we're going to try is one called burnt tin, and it's like a sort of dark bronzy colour, and I think it's the colour that you would use on the cowling rings on, say, a fairy swordfish. That's the sort of colour it is. If you're familiar with a fairy swordfish, you'll know exactly what I mean. So it's a very nice colour, and I can immediately see a use for it, so that's handy. Don't always see an immediate use for some colours that you see, but we're giving it a good shake, so let's open it up. There we go, and there, that's your colour inside, and it does bear resemblance to what you get on the label tops. So all the metallics, just a point to make, all the metallic colours, if you look at this, have a dark bit and then a faded light bit, whereas non-metallics are solid all the way around. So that's how you know when you're looking at them in your drawer from the above, you know which ones are metallic or not instantly. So there we go. I'm actually going to try a little bit of painting without having thinned it, and we'll see what happens. So yeah, it's not bad, it is not bad, but we are seeing some brush strokes, so I think a little dab of water is what is needed just to thin that out a little bit. So I'm literally going to put a little bit in the palette next to it so that I can lift some off with the brush and mix it that way, because I think a full drop would probably be too much. So let's just give that a space and see how that goes down much better. You are going to need 2 coats. We've already established that the paint system really needs 2 to 3, maybe even 4 depending on the colour. But that goes down, that's a lovely Lovely deep colour that actually. Really like that. So we'll let that dry. I'll wash the palette up and then we'll perhaps do one on one of the wings, and we'll keep doing it that way so that the paints are dry when you put the next colour next to them. So that first one was burnt tin, and I absolutely love that colour. Really nice. To me, I should use my smaller palette because I want to be able to do a second coat in a minute or two when these dry. So that's what that's for. I've got several of them. So we can, they're actually blister packs for tablets, but they're a really good way of having a small palette. Right, so this is silver. And we're just going to give that a dab of water. There we go, and paint this one in the silver, and you can see that goes down really nicely. In fact, that dab of water may have slightly over thinned it, but yeah. Okay, we'll let that dry. Our next colour is rusty brass, which again is another one of the colours that I thought looked really, really good when I saw it. It's like a dark gold colour, and would look great on ships' propellers and that sort of thing. But it will be interesting to see what we think when we put the bronze down. So that's a lovely colour as well, isn't it? Right, this is dry now, so we'll put a second coat down of that. The colour we're going to try is the bronze. And it almost has a touch of verdigris with it. Yeah, that's interesting. Now that one feels fairly thin as it is. I'm not sure I want to thin that one particularly. Let's put it down and see what we think, putting it down neat. Yeah, that's gone down all right neat actually. You see, it's a lovely warm bronzy colour, that, which would be really nice on figures that have got bronze metal work on there, you know, like bracelets and things like that, or shield bosses, that type of thing. Very, very nice. So that was our bronze. So the next colour we're going to put down is the aluminium, which looks very pale to me, but we will see. And again, this feels like it's probably okay without any thinning whatsoever. So we're going to try it straight from the jar. Yeah, possibly a little dab of water, because I can see brush strokes in there. So just make sure I've got a clean drop. So literally a dab. Yeah. Yeah, they brush really nicely. All of these colours are brushing really, really nicely. So there is a difference there, a subtle difference, but we'll put a second coat down so that it's not quite as translucent and we'll get a better view. Right, putting the gold down next, and I can already tell you from an acrylic paint point of view, this is my favourite gold. It's such a lovely warm gold, but usually you have a real problem with golds separating, and we don't seem to have that problem with this one. Now, it's, again, it probably needs a dab of water, so let me just do that, but it's just a mere dab, sort of moist brush type thing. There we go. We'll put that down next to our rusty brass. I just think the coverage of this gold is really, really good. There we go. So that's our gold down, and we can see the difference between that and that. So you could use that as a wash, dark wash in the gold, to be honest. Or maybe add a bit of burnt tin to it. The possibilities are endless. Gunmetal is our next colour. We're going to put that on the fuselage also. And I'm finding in the main that these metallics straight from the jar are about right. If you apply them with a moist brush, that seems to be about right. They don't really need thinning too much. And I'm literally dabbing it in the water. And it just allows it to flow a little bit better, and that then in turn reduces your risk of it drying with any brush marks, but they're going down so well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give these paints that we've put down a second coat, and then we'll clean the palette and we can carry on with our last remaining 4 paints. Right, the next colour we're going to try is called Oily Steel. And I'm just going to put this one down neat because I'm finding that actually the metallics prefer to be brush painted without being thinned. And again, when you first put it down, you can see some witness of the paintbrush, but as it dries, you are losing that. It's not changing how many coats you have to put on. You can see I'm working it quite hard there to try and even it out, but we'll leave that to dry. So that's the Oily Steel. And then we've got Natural Steel, which we'll put next to it. That's Oily Steel. Right, I think we'll try the copper next. So the copper is a real nice sort of fresh copper pipe type look. So we'll put that down next to our gold. Now I would say that Humbrol enamel copper is probably the best copper I've ever found, but that looks really nice and has gone down really quite well. Right, so this is Natural Steel, and it reminds me very much of Humbrol number 11 silver, to be honest. So let's actually a little darker than I imagined it would be. Our final colour is Brass, and again, brass is another colour that I struggle to find a good working brass. So I'm really interested to see how this goes down. I'm hoping it's going to perform like the gold did. Now this one feels a little thicker, so just dip my brush in a bit of water. Yeah, that helps. Okay, I'm going to let them dry and we'll give them some second coats, and then you can get a good impression of the final colours. So everything has had 2 coats now, and my conclusion to this is that the lighter colours, the silvers, so that's the aluminium, silver, oily steel and natural steel, all are going to need a little bit of thinning, and all of them are going to need several coats if you're brush painting. If you're putting it down with an airbrush, you're going to have to be very, very careful about thinning, because you can easily over thin these paints. You get them to sort of 50-50 and they might be a little bit thin as metallics and start pooling. They're certainly going to need at least a couple of coats when airbrushing, but you can see these are now dry. They do look really nice and metallic, and we know that a varnish will bring that luster up even more. So there is a nice range of silvers there. I really like the oily steel. It gives you quite a nice effect. These ones that we've done down the middle, so this is the burnt tin, the bronze and the gunmetal, they've gone down really nice as well. Again, if you're brush painting with them, just a moist brush, wet with water rather than thinning it, and that sort of will help you out. But look how smooth they've gone down. Really, really nice. I think they've brush painted very well, and if they brush paint well, you're not going to have any problems with airbrushing. When we go to the sort of more gold range, and just to remind you, it's rusty brass, gold, copper and brass. I think again you've got a nice range of colours. You could certainly mix them to change the hues a little bit. You could add some of these darker colours, you could add some of these lighter colours, so you've got lots of options there. Because they're sort of the medium density colours, so these are darker, those are lighter, these are sort of in the middle there. Again, they're going to need 2 to 3 coats minimum. You can see the copper's come out better than the 2 more gold type colours, but you've got some nice variations there in your brasses, a sort of an antique brass and a new brass. The copper's a sort of new colour, but you can even put that down as a dark copper, couldn't you? That burnt tin, sorry. So lots and lots of options with mixing these, but the basic colours themselves I think are great. I struggle to find golds and brasses that you can put down really well. I find Vallejo separates and it just doesn't do the job, and it doesn't airbrush well. I find AK doesn't airbrushes better than paintbrushes, but doesn't airbrush particularly well either. So I really struggled. So these are refreshing that they work so well straight away out of the pot. So there you go, that is our metallic colours in the ICM range. I hope that gives you a bit of an understanding of what you get with the metallics, and like I say, if you can paint with them using a brush, which we clearly can, then we can certainly use the airbrush with them. And these are starting to dry now, and I'm scratching that with my finger, and that's not going anywhere. I'm sure I can make it come off if I try really hard, but that was just one coat straight from the pot. So yeah, they're tough old paints. and I really like them so far. So yeah, that's the metallics. I hope that was useful or interesting, or maybe even both. Thank you very much for looking in. You enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you very soon.